Chapter 24, Section 5, Americans Look to the Future. How was American society changing at the beginning of the 21st century, so into the 2000s? The impact of immigration on American society and cause and effects of changing demographics. So one of the things that we see is immigration is going to be debated and changed several different times. There's currently a debate over DACA. The major immigration reform is in 1984, the Immigration Reform and Control Act. It's signed into law by President Reagan. And essentially what it does is any illegal immigrant who had been in the United States since 1982 and had been working and had a full-time employment was given legal status in the United States. The other thing it did is also beefed up the ability to control the border. So pretty much if people had been here and had been working, they were kind of forgiven for coming into the country illegally. But then they were also going to try and crack down and prevent more illegal immigrants from coming across the country. And then the Immigration Act of 1990, which was signed into law by President Bush, increased the quotas, meaning more people could come in from more places around the world. And it also eased restrictions, so it made it easier for people to qualify for visas. And so if we look at that impact of that immigration, what we are seeing is the United States is changing. And it's changing for a couple of different reasons. And we'll talk about some of those down the road as we go. So here's another chart that is kind of showing projections forward and the ethnic and racial makeup and composition of the United States into about 2050. So when we look at immigrants shaping the nation and exerting their influence, Latinos are by far the biggest or the fastest growing immigrant group in the United States. And they are not only a growing segment of the population, but they have become more politically active. And so what we're seeing is the number of Latinos in elected office. Now this is from 2011, so there are even more Latinos in office in 2018. But you see them becoming or running for more political offices and getting elected to more political offices. Now the other thing we also see is that the Asian population in the United States is growing, and that is a trend that picked up in the late 1970s post-Vietnam War, that more and more Asians are coming to the United States and migrating to the United States. So again, here's another chart showing the potential makeup of the United States down the road as population continues and if these trends continue. So when you look at the debate on immigration, those who want to restrict it say that immigrants take jobs and services from citizens. They tend to oppose bilingual education, which, I mean, from a psychological standpoint, bilingual education is one of the best things you can do for kids, especially at a young age. At a young age, their brains are designed to pick up on language. And so if you want kids to learn more than one language, it's immediately when they're first learning. The other thing about it is you see that those people who can speak more than one language are better problem solvers, they're better thinkers, and they understand their own native language better. But that's from an educational psychological standpoint. So the reason to increase it is immigrants contribute to the economy. They tend to take low-paying jobs that nobody wants anyway. And when you look at the United States, if it weren't for immigrants and if it weren't for Hispanics, our population would be shrinking, and we would be just like the other industrialized nations in the world, where they have fewer and fewer people every single year, every single generation. And if you look at a country like Japan, pretty soon Japan's not going to have enough workers to maintain their economy. So the other thing about the debate is illegal immigration. I mean, that's really where the debate is. It's not on immigrants coming in, because we need immigrants to come in to do some jobs that we can't fill. If we can't fill, like computer programming jobs, well, we don't want those jobs going to other countries, because that's going to shrink the size of our economy, and it's not going to work very well. The real problem when you look at illegal immigration is those people who don't go through the proper steps. One of the things when you look at immigration reform is it is a real difficult process to become a citizen in this country. You're talking 1 to 2 decades pretty much to be able to become an American citizen. Now, one of the other things you see is the second President Bush passes or gets legislation passed that makes it easier for farmers in the United States and businesses in the United States to legally hire migrant or illegal or undocumented workers. And the other thing is he proposed a process to make those people citizens. You know, if they're coming to our country, if they're working hard, if they're not breaking laws, let's figure out a way to help them become citizens so they can continue to contribute to American society and the growth of the American economy. And so that is something that the Republican Party didn't really support and didn't really back him on, so it didn't get done. And what we've seen over the course of the last couple decades is immigration reform getting shot down time and time again. If we look at changing family and changing demographics, since the 1950s, the United States is a much different place. We have more and more families who have both parents working outside the home, whereas once upon a time, dad would go off to work, mom would stay at home and raise the kids. After the 1970s, that isn't the way things are anymore. The other thing is the size of families are shrinking, which is part of the reason why our population is going down, and that is being filled by immigrants. The number of single-family households, single-parent households has gone up. The number of children out of wedlock has gone up, although that statistic has kind of dropped in the past probably 5 years or so. The other thing is we see expanding rights. We see more and more groups of people who have access to things that they didn't have before. So, for example, women are slowly earning the same as men, and in some industries that is much better. You see more women as heads of companies and CEOs and those types of things. So that has definitely changed. One of the negative trends is household median income has dropped over the past few years, and so that is something that needs to be addressed. The other problem is America is growing older. The most recent statistic is by 2030, 20%, so 1 in 5 Americans will be over the age of 65. And that is going to put a strain on Social Security. It's going to put a strain on social welfare. And we don't have enough workers to pay for baby boomers or to cover Social Security. So that's something we're going to have to deal with as time goes. The other thing as we go forward, if you look at this political cartoon, Syria, Iraq, Afghanistan, Gaza, that was 2014 into 2015. Those places, you could really go to 1988 in some of those places to present, and 30 some years later, we're dealing with the same places, the same issues, and we haven't really come up with a very good solution to those things. And really, moving forward, the number one thing, and this is me, I guess, saying what I think is probably the most pressing problem for your generation going forward is the national debt. It's not sustainable, and at some point in time, that debt has got to get paid off.